Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome all. As is the tradition at the Bangalore International Centre, we always aim to start sharp on time. It's just 11. And I think today is a particularly poignant 11 a.m. because it's the 11th day of the 11th month, 100 and the 11th hour, 105 years ago that the guns fell silent on the Western Front in particular. I just ask all of you to please stand while we play the last post. So without much ado, we'll get underway for this morning's program, but just so that I can set some context. The Great War, which ended 105 years ago, saw 1 million Indian troops in various battles overseas. And there were about 65,000 Indian dead and missing in action. The total military deaths were about 75,000 and the military wounded about 70,000. And amongst the Great Britain and the Empire troops, the total number of losses was 7.45 lakhs. Aggregate number of military deaths just shy of 1 million, and military wounded about 1.67 million. As Field Marshal Sir Claude Auchinleck, the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army in 1942, said that Britain couldn't have come through World War I and World War II if they hadn't had the use of the Indian Army. And while I just call Dr. Githa up in a minute or so, when fighting broke out in the autumn of 1914, the Indian troops were marshaled into different expeditionary forces, a total of 7 of them. Expeditionary Force A on the Western Front, where of course we have such names that are seared into collective memory, such as Verdun, the Somme, Ypres, Vimy Ridge, Passchendaele, and for the Indians, the battle at Nouveau Chapelle. That was Expeditionary Force A, who fought on the Western Front. British Indian troops were also marshaled into Expeditionary Force B, fighting in the East African colonies, the German colonies in Tanganyika. And Dr. Githa will mention briefly about this. The 27th Bangalore Brigade that fought at the Battle of Tanga, the famous Battle of the Bees, a battle where the Germans found that the beehives that hung over the swamps were easy targets because they covered themselves in cow dung and shot the hives down, and the hives, of course, and the agitated bees ran amok amongst the Indian troops. That was Expeditionary Force B. Expeditionary Force C was again in East Africa, the famous battle at Kilimanjaro to keep the lines open in East Africa. Expeditionary Force D in Mesopotamia. Expeditionary Force E in the Sinai and Palestine, of which, of course, we will hear a lot more when it comes to the Mysore, Hyderabad, and Jodhpur Lancers. And Expeditionary Forces F and G in the Suez Offensive and the famous Gallipoli landings in 1915, along with the Australian and New Zealand troops. So it was a battle that was a war that was truly cross-empire at the time. And we'll talk a little bit about what happened after war's end, especially in the old princely state of Mysore. If I could now call upon Dr. Githa to address us on this morning's session. I would also, of course, welcome once again Major General Ravi Murugan, the General Officer Commanding of the Bangalore, the Karnataka and Kerala sub-area, who will also address us, and we'll have a conversation afterwards. Ma'am, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth Raja, for the succinct insight as to what this session of a talk and interaction will lead to. Maybe we will be dusting the Bangalore's forgotten military footprints. Like he said, exactly 105 years ago, the agreement for cessation of war was signed. And prior to, it was in 1919 actually, and celebrations took place in the Buckingham Palace. But before that, agreement was signed, and then it was only for about 36 days, and they went on renewing it till such time in June 1919 that it became official when they signed the Treaty of Versailles. So it was at that, but before that, when the celebration took place elsewhere in 1919, in 1918, our Maharaja Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar received the news that a sort of an agreement has been signed on November 11th itself, and then he had a meeting with his people, and then he declared that December 7th is going to be a holiday, and then we will be celebrating this victory, great victory, wherein the Mysore Lancers have done creditably well because they created history in their incursions with at the Battle of Haifa. So what happened was, this is from the Madras Mail. So immediately he sent a notification saying that we have to do celebrations. We have to give the heroes who have come back a grand welcome. So he told December 7th will be a holiday, and then all the schools will be closed, and then even the government offices, and we will have to do poor feeding in addition to the other celebrations, and then distribute books for the school. And then what happened on that day, 7th, through the Pete area, Colonel Desaraj Urs was followed by, he was the hero of the Battle of Haifa. So he was followed by his son, Colonel Rajkumar Desaraj Urs, and they led the whole team of the troops ceremoniously in the Pete area. Then they come exactly at 9 o'clock to the Yelahanka gate and proceed to the South Parade grounds where this function was taking place. They come back around 3:30, and the rousing reception that they received from the entire population of that Pete area is something unbelievable. So even the people supported and were a part of this happiness, of this great turning point in the history of cavalry warfare, because after this the cavalry was disbanded, and we had mechanized, we had other troops coming, but there was never soldiers on horseback. So it was something very interesting to say that our Maharaja was very proactive. And not only in this, but also in the war arrangements, the way he gave money, about 50 lakhs at one time, 30 lakhs and 10 lakhs over a period of 4 years, totally amounting to 1 crore. And not only that, he also mobilized stuff like hides, then blankets, food, and in this the Mahila Samaj also put in their effort by giving sweaters, socks, and other thing which is needed in that climate. So this was how we celebrated the greatness of this thing before any of the allied countries could even do this. So on this Armistice Day, which we are surrounded by strife all around in whatever measure, small or big, I would like to dust the pages of history and share my thoughts on the military achievements and the military history of Bangalore, Bangalore's role in the Great War. Now, unlike in other countries where people are aware, we seem to be having an amnesia, a flight of memory. Though we have memorials surrounding us, it is like as if we are not aware of the next door. So why is it so? Is it because, especially I'm talking about the military memorials and the military history, we are not much aware, unlike the other heritage structures here. Why is it so? Is it because the British underplayed the heroism, the courage of the natives? Or is it independent India wanted to remove the shackles and vestiges of colonial rule? What is it? Or generally, we are so filled with the memories that we are not able to imbibe or take in such essential matter. So, but whatever it is, we find that we are very good at moving statues, at demolishing structures, renaming streets, and also recently we found the renaming of areas. Why do we do this? Is it because we want to impose a modern narrative? Or is it because we want to give a separate layer of understanding, a new layer of understanding in the present times, not understanding that this took place so many years back? History thus is not a stagnant entity. It is a living, evolving tapestry of human experiences and narratives which is worth understanding. And in this history, it is war history which is very little understood. It is a valuable field for both the professional soldiers and the other people, the civilians, to understand what happens in conflict, the past and the present in context. So usually in conflict, it is the commander's ability to stop, start, or fight a war or a battle. And also, or is it his ability of leadership, of his skill of logistics and skill of inspiring his subordinates to give out their best? What is it? But whatever it is the mind of the commander which is very, very crucial here, because he has to take split-second decisions, and these decisions can either make or break a war. They can bring a victory or they can bring this thing. So that's why in such a context, it is always very interesting to understand the military history, at least in surrounding our area. Now cities, they are shaped by several layers of imprints of the natives as well as the settlers, the people who come time to time. That's why you find that, can you change the... that's why you find that there are various, the new, which is juxtaposed with the old. So you find sometimes there is a clash, sometimes there is an adjustment, but whatever it is. It was after 1799, after the death of Tipu Sultan, that the garrison of the East India Company, they filled the fort and the palaces of Srirangapatna. But it was not to be for long, because jocularly it is said it was the mosquitoes that drove the troops to Bangalore. So why did it happen? Because it was a swampy area. And then they started looking at, where do we go and settle? So the choices were Sira, then Chitradurga, then Kolar and Bangalore. And Bangalore scored because of its salubrious climate. It was already a mercantile city. There was heavy mercantile transactions, and of the proximity to both Madras and to Bangalore, and also to do trade northwards. So it was these factors that one Lieutenant Colonel John Blakiston, he was a 21-year-old boy who showed his mettle in the Vellore mutiny, and then he was asked to design and build this cantonment. So the Maharaja again was generous enough to give 34 acres of land, 6 kilometers away from the Pete area, and he developed it by starting from the Ulsoor region. And then this had a parade ground which stretched for 3.2 kilometers, and north of this parade ground there were the barracks, the regiments, like Cavalry Road. You see the names are so named because of the regiments which are put there. And it was later on that military establishments came like an arc. So you find at the Hebbal area the Mysore Lancers, the Munireddy Palya, Ganga Palya area. Then you find the Madras Sappers in Ulsoor, and Domlur you find the ASC and AGRAM. So these are the military establishments that come about, and they enclose the residential places inside. So it was very interesting that this nearly constitutes some 8 to 10,000 acres. This is one of the biggest cantonment, the second largest, biggest in South India, and second largest in Kanpur. So what they thought would be temporary, it has sprawled to become a part of today's Bengaluru. But fortunately, it is not forgotten. We have not forgotten our heroes. When we see that there are 4 memorials surrounding this place. You find one at the intersection of Brigade Road and Residency Road, then at JC Road, then at St. Joseph's School on Museum Road, and you also find in the ASC campus. So it is not that we have forgotten. Maybe we need reiterating now and then to say that, listen, this is our heritage, this is our military history. Let us be a part of it. And as Siddharth had said, we had about nearly 1.4 million people joining in this war for this 4 years, and with about 72 people dead. And thus we see that independent India has inherited a apolitical, highly disciplined army, which was helpful in bringing about stabilization during the birth of the nation. So, can you next? So, who are the people who have joined? It was Tom, Dick, and Harry, any sundry, because there was incentives given to them that if you join, you will be getting so and so, so and so. So, masons, agriculturists, farmers, so you name it, all of them were interested in doing this. And this is what Lord Curzon had to say. These are the people who did not know what the climate was. We were from a warm tropical, you go to temperate, or you go to harsh climates. And how are they dressed? Not even with which is necessary to there. And do they even know why are they fighting? They don't even know why they are fighting. And what is the cause? They have just come for the incentives that was given by the Maharaja. So you see that this is what Lord Curzon has to say. They were not even engaged in a quarrel of their own making. And ours was the largest voluntary force in the world. And like Siddharth said, but for our soldiers, Britain would not have won either of the wars. So in the face of these trials and difficulties, the cheerfulness, the loyalty, the good discipline, the intrepid courage of the denizens of another clime cannot be too highly praised. The Indian troops fought with heroic endurance in France, Egypt, Aden, on the Suez Canal, Gallipoli, East Africa, West Africa, and in Mesopotamia. They were the first of the overseas troops to face the Germans in France for no rhyme, no reason at all. So next. So by documenting the Mysore Lancers, we are reconstructing a forgotten Israeli connect. It is the Battle of Haifa. Now Haifa today is like information technology capital of Israel, just like Bengaluru is. But at one point of time during the Great War and subsequently, it was, even today also, it was a very important seaport. It had a deep harbor and airfield, and it also was the supply base and arms depot for serving the Middle East forces during the war. So they also had a large naval depot. So it was very important that this had to be liberated from the Ottomans. So we find that it was the Maharaja of Mysore who was the first to form a army consisting of the infantry, the cavalry, and the animal transport corps. The 15th Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade was a formation that fought alongside the British forces, and they consisted of units given by the princely states of Mysuru, Jodhpur, then Hyderabad, Patiala, and Alwar. But at any given point of time, all these could not be a part of a regiment or a troop. Only 3 of these princely states could be allowed to go on. Maybe it was the fear of the British stating that they will now form a group and then try to overthrow the British. Maybe it was that fear. So in the 15th Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade, the Mysore Lancers were a part of its troops. It had also, the animal transport was also made a part of Mysore Lancers with the mules, carts, and ponies. So they set off on 13th October 1914 under the command of Regimentardar B. Chamaraj Urs. And subsequently in 1918, it went with one Furmilla Khan, who took larger regiments and access of this animal transport. And in addition, during this 1916, the Maharaja sent his brother-in-law, Colonel J. Desaraj Urs. He was the chief commandant of the Mysore state troops, and he went representing the king as his personal representative. So the 15th Imperial Service Cavalry Brigade had 3 engagements with the enemy, like how Siddharth had said A, B, C, D, E. So this, especially the Mysore Lancers, had 3 engagements with the enemy in the Suez Canal zone in November 1915, and he took part also in the attack on Gaza in Palestine in November 1970. So basically when they went to Egypt, they set sail, and it was mainly to guard the Suez Canal. So especially, and they used to patrol the Sinai Palestine area because there was the Turkish troops that were trying to not let go of the control of the Haifa. So we find that this Haifa battle, so it was a part of the World War I, and wherein the British Indian Army took on a combined might of the Ottoman Empire. So what happened was, in this, the 3 regiments of Mysore, Jodhpur, and Hyderabad, so they were asked to go and drive away the Ottomans. So what happened was, the entry to this place is very narrow. It is surrounded by the mountain on one side, and there is the river Kishon. So the Mount Carmel on one side, that's the place, the route, the road route is through. You have to go between these 2 river and the mountain. And this mountain was very slope, very steep. And the Mysore Lancers, one batch of them went there because on top of the Mount Carmel, there were the light artillery guns of the Ottomans. So they were all there, Germans, Austrians, they were all there. So what one batch did was, they went around and climbing the steep slope, they lost men, they lost horses, but ultimately they were successful in catching hold of killing the person who was in charge of managing the artillery, light artillery guns, and they took one gun and also as a booty. Then afterwards, the second group of the Mysore Lancers, once this was cleared, there was a small space which is called as the defile. So that is the only place through which you can get entry into the Haifa back. So then this Jodhpur Lancers, they charged in because now there was no guns, though they also lost some people, but there was not threat of the guns happening. So they went, and they were also followed by the Mysore Lancers, and 400 men on cavalry defeated 1,500 Turks who they had only lances in their hand, whereas the Turkish Ottoman Turkish, they had heavy artillery and sophisticated weaponry, but in spite of that they defeated them, took them prisoners. So you find that the two regiments took 1,350 Turks and Germans prisoners while capturing 4.2-inch guns, 8 77mm guns, a 6-inch naval gun, and 11 machine guns. Prior to this, this Lancers group was led by the British commander. He is the overall. So when he saw how difficult it is to scale this, he said, no, let's go back. But then the people, Mysore Lancers and Jodhpur, they said, no, we will not go. We come from the Kshatriya race. So if we go, we will be laughed at. We will lose our respect. It is better we die here. We are not looking into going happily, this thing, but we are prepared to take that risk. And it was then till such time, the Lancers, they were only used pompously for ceremonial parades. But here they saw under the command of Aman Singh and Dalpat Singh and also Colonel Desraj Urs, they found that they could capture, and they found that these people are quite smart. They also have a head, and it was for the first time after this that the officers were taken into the British Army. They were taken, and they were also sent for training to London, and it was Colonel Desraj Urs who was the first Indian to get an entry into the exclusive Bangalore club. So he was that is when they acknowledged the Indians are really brave. So it was their haughtiness to think that they are only the best and we cannot give out our best. So what has happened in this battle of Haifa is that it has influenced happenings in three ways. And what are that? One is the Ottoman rule was demolished. There was no Ottoman rule. 400 years of Ottoman rule comes to a close. And secondly, they rescued Abdul Baha, who was the elder son of Baha'u'llah, who was the founder of Baha'i. If they were late by even one day, he would have been killed. That's why the Baha'i faith, you find a beautiful lotus temple in Delhi, and they still have a high regard for Mysoreans. Even to this day, they hold in high regard, just as Israel also holds the Indians in high regard. So then subsequently what happened was, now that the purpose was served, and then mechanization and heavy artillery, gunpowder, and advanced artillery was seen. So there was no need for these people on these Lancers. There was no need. So the Mysore Lancers were absorbed into the 61st Cavalry Regiment in the post-colonial Indian Army in March 1951, though its regimental insignia, the mythical bird Ganda Berunda, is in a modified version. It is not like how we are aware. It is doesn't look that very good, I feel, but still it is there. It has been taken, and the mythical in a modified version, and this is the insignia of the 61st Cavalry Regiment. So the Indian Jews, there are quite a number of them here. So what they say is, Israel is my fatherland and blood, but India my motherland and heart. And this is the only country where they lived with dignity and honor. Next, please. So this is what you see. You find there the Mysore Lancer with his raw courage and then valor. And then you find that he has a lance, and then he has the horse. That is the only ammunition that he carried. And then in the center you find both the troops coming into being given a victorious reception in the city. So you find them entering the city, and this looks so bad, no? Our Ganda Berunda is so beautiful. So this is how today it is the insignia of the 61st Cavalry. So by documenting the Mysore Lancers, we are reconstructing a forgotten Israeli connect in the Battle of Haifa. But Haifa has not forgotten. They have mentioned this in their textbooks for school children, and they have a memorial. They have burial place. I think it is even the Commonwealth Games burial like that. They have wherein they respect, and every year. Only now, in the last 5 years, that we have started remembering our ancestors. Next, please. So, a battle is not only the strategy, the war place, or whatever. It is also the people. Like I said, the commander, what goes on in his mind. It is also the people who are very important. So, who are the people? Some of the heroes I just touch here because of lack of time. How much more time is there? 20 minutes. Okay. So, we find that I am just touching upon some of the heroes. So, to start with, His Highness Krishna Raja Wadiyar. He sent his brother-in-law, Colonel J. Desaraj Urs, the chief commandant of the Mysore state troops, as his personal representative to Haifa. Then he was a very benevolent king, and he was called as Rajarishi by none other than Mahatma Gandhi. And he was a very accomplished singer of both Carnatic and Hindustani as well as Western music. And he was the vice chancellor of Banaras Hindu University and also the Mysore University, which was for the first time a chartered university of any state. Then, towards the war fund, His Highness placed a sum of 50 lakhs in September 1914, and in April 1918 made a further gift of 10 lakhs. Totally, the amount that he had given constituted 13% of the war total funds that India gave for these war efforts. So, and also they sent supplies. Much needed for that climate, and it was also their Mahila Samaj. Then, interestingly, it was also he gave permission and money support to build the IISc. So IISc, the scientists were very good. So there was the mahua flowers. So the mahua flowers they used to use for distillery, for alcohol, perfumery. So he had an idea. Why not we make some explosives? Is it possible? So he sends a request to Indian Institute of Science. They do some experiments. They bring a Londoner, an expert in this chemistry field. Then they say, no, it is not possible. So he went to that extent of wanting to do something really good and something out of the way. Then the next person is Risaldar Squadron Commander A. Lingaraja. He was a 21-year-old young soldier, and he was the son-in-law of Chamaraja Urs, who led the first team set sail to Egypt to the Suez Canal. So he was also the commander, the field commander of that area, and he was responsible for a hand-to-hand combat in killing a notorious Bedouin leader. He was obstructing the Suez Canal, and he was causing lots of problem there. So this daredevil, because how it happened was he followed a convoy of some camels and Turks, and in that 7 people were killed and some wounded, and killed among them was Rizqullah Khan. So this Rizqullah Khan was a Bedouin notorious leader. So for this he was awarded, he was recognized, and he was buried. He also died in this war without coming back home, and he was buried in the Basra War Memorial in Iraq. Then the next person who is very little known is Captain Mir Turan Ali. So he also was sent to Egypt, and he played a decisive role in the victory of the Battle of Haifa. So what he did was, he was the one responsible. He went on that steep slope. Behind, he catches hold of the Turkish soldier there and kills him, and that helps in both the teams going through the defile into the city. Then he was posted to undergo a machine gun training. So 6 days into the training, he was called for action. So this was in a Turkish redoubt at Bir el Mahadat. So what he did was, he fired 300 rounds, and the gun got jammed. But meanwhile, the fear that caused in the enemy, they simply retreated, not realizing that he is not able to do anything. Then he was for some time appointed the instructor of the 15th Machine Gun Squadron that took a conspicuous part in the capture of Haifa. Then we find it is Sardar Bahadur Chamaraj Urs who led the team to Egypt in October 1914 as the commandant of the Imperial Service Troop. Then in November 1917, he was appointed to the Order of British India in June 1916, and also he was decorated with the White Eagle of Serbia. Next, please. So this is what has been told by what was his services. So this gives an idea by Major General W.A. Watson as to his courage, how he led his troop. So he says, from the moment when the brigade was concentrated at Deolali, 17 months ago, it was evident to me that your regiment, he writes this to Chamaraj Urs, was imbued with a splendid military spirit, and it was clear that your own character and influence was the cause. He was able to inspire, a true commander, he was able to inspire his soldiers, his subordinates to give out the best. So he was also present in action around Gaza in the Palestine, November 1917, and he showed extraordinary courage and steadiness in leading the men. Next, please. So now we come to Colonel Desaraj Urs. Before I speak about him, we have Chinnamamba Urs, whose husband, Colonel Desaraj Urs, who fought in Madam Milli Bunny. Bunny, you come from such a lineage. Let us have the pleasure. Her husband was the grandson of Colonel Desaraj Urs. So we also have his nephew, Yogi Urs there, a pilot who made it possible to come over here. So Colonel Desaraj Urs was the brother-in-law of Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar. He was the chief commander of the Mysore troops. The entire regiment, Mysore regiment, he was in charge, and he was posted in around Egypt, Suez Canal, Gaza, in Palestine. And he was appointed as attaché in the Mysore military department in August 1884. Prior to the World War I, he had many assignments, and he was decorated because of his role in the Battle of Haifa. The Maharaja decorated him with a first-class medal of the Gandoberunda Order. Colonel J. Desaraj Urs' military spirit is remembered even now with pride by the people of Mysore. He was majestically a person with a majestic presence who commanded all. So though he had options to go to other, because his son Rajkumar Desaraj Urs was ADC to the Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar. So he could have taken other assignments, but he wanted to be a part of military. His personality was such, and he also inspired respect and awe with whomever he has come. He married the sister of Nalwadi Krishnaraja Wadiyar, and unfortunately, his wife and 3 of his daughters, they died due to TB. So with his own money, he was such a man of such self-pride. With his own money, he built the TB sanatorium. If you go to Mysore, even to this day, it is called as the PK Sanatorium. So, and at one point of time when he was away, a part of the building had fallen down, and when it was being repaired, he was very angry that he did not want to take anybody's help. He was a man of so much pride, very well suited for the profession that he has taken. Then we find Risaldar M.B. Subbaraja Urs. So he was another young hero. He was the, just one minute. He was commanding a patrol near the enemy ferry post of Ismailia. So immediately they opened fire and he had to retire, go back. But there was also the Bhavnagar Lancers were also a part of this. Like I said, 3 regiments can join together. So Bhavnagar were part of this. And when they retreated, because it was unexpected, when they retreated, one Ram Singh from the Bhavnagar Lancers, his horse was shot in the leg. So it fell down and he fell on the head of the horse. And immediately when Subbaraja Urs saw this, Without caring for his life, he retreated back, took the Ram Singh, put him on his horse and took him to safety behind a hill. So for this, he was given the award. Then we have Risaldar B.P. Krishnaraja Ars. So he was yet another young hero, and he was the contemporary of Yuvaraj Shri Kantirava Narasimha Raja Odiyar, and he also left for service in 1914. Then we find that he has been also awarded, and his splendid example inspired all ranks. So what did he do? He was leading a troop under heavy fire. So without bothering that this fire may hit him or this thing, he charged and then brought victory in that charge. So that's why he was, rewarded for this. Next, please. So these are the heroes. To the left is His Highness Krishnaraja Odiyar. Then you find Lingaraja Ars. Then you find Chamaraja Ars. Then you find Colonel Desaraj Ars. So his very countenance is very military and shows that he's... Next, please. So this, for the Mysore Lancers, there is a memorial on JC Road, which was JC Nagar, but it is also the road where it is there. It is called as Colonel Desaraj Ars Road. But till about 5 years ago, everybody would go. The buses, it is just next to the TV tower. Buses would go and all that, but nobody knew. But it is only in the last 5 years that with the wreath laying ceremony that people are now aware of the contribution to the Great War. And these are the people who are in Bangalore. They have their quarters there. It is called the Savari quarters. And you find that on one side there is the emblem of the Ganda Berunda, and it says who are the men, where did they fight. And another side it says the Mysore Lancers, where did they fight. Suez Canal, Egypt, and in Megiddo, Sharon, Damascus, and Palestine. Next. And other two sides, you have the roll of honor. So I will have to read out this roll of honor. At least this is one way we pay our respect. So there are on both the sides. So this side, it says, it has a list of soldiers who died, including that of 2 officers, A. Lingaraj Ars and Mir Ashraf Ali. Other soldiers who died were Venkatrao Mane, Annaji Dumal, Rachunatha Rao, Birji, Muhammad Abdul Sattar, Narsingh, Muhammad Pir Khan, Rahimon Khan, Ganapati Rao Shinde, Ramarao Gaikwad, Manadeve Rao Bobde, Sheikh Ibrahim, Sham Singh, Roya Sundaram, Chidambara Rao, Itapati, and Mir Abdullah Latif. So this is only on the one side. Other side there are other names also. Next, please. So now we move from Hebal to Ulsoor. So the Madras pioneers, the first Madras pioneers regiment was raised by the Madras presidency of the British in 1780. So in 1865 it was shifted to Bangalore, and in 1933 it was absorbed into the Madras Engineering Group, MEG, which is informally known as Mysore Sappers in 1933. So these people were into the logistics. They also would repair and construct buildings, roads, then bridges, then docks, repair. All this they would do, and you would find some of them at the lower cadre carrying a pickaxe. They were always ready to do any work at any point of time. But at some point of time, they were also called as combat engineers, because they were also called to fight in wars. And because most of them were from Madras, they were called as Thambis. And that's why on the memorial, you will find that the inscription is both in English and Tamil. So there is a memorial which is at the intersection of Brigade Road and Residency Road, which was not known for a long time. People would go, people would do shopping, but still nobody gave a glance as to what it is, at least out of curiosity. But I think the new tender shoot has taken this thing some years back, and now they have made it well. There is a sitting bench, and there's also a point of a bus wherein the G12 or something, all the IT people catch it. So now you find that there is a space for people to sit and admire at that. So what does this memorial stand for? It stands for 350 officers and soldiers of the Madras pioneers. And this was, installed there in 1928. So it commemorates the valor of 350 officers and soldiers of the Madras pioneers who fought in 3 different battalions and regiments, the 61st Pioneers, the 64th, and 84th. And where did they fight? In Burma, East Africa, Afghanistan, and the northwest frontier. So this is a tribute to officers both commissioned and non-commissioned, and who gave their lives during the Great War. In one side, this is what it is mentioned, the Great War 1914 to 1918, and there is an emblem of the Mysore Sappers elephant on a pedestal. So on the pedestal it is written as Assay, A-S-S-A-Y-E. So it was a place in Maharashtra wherein young Arthur Wellesley, he defeated the very heavy group of the Marathas in 1802. 1802. Then we also find another side that there is number 1 and it's in a bracket. On the right hand side it is written Srirangapatna, on the left hand side it is written as Sita Bulli. So Srirangapatna is a wars they fought against Tipu Sultan, the Mysore Anglo wars, and Sita Bulli is a place in Nagpur wherein they breached the fortifications, and they also had a thumping victory. And on the other sides you find that whichever regiment, either it is a 64th or the 84th, the insignia, the emblem of that this thing is there. And we also find that on this face, the name of Sholangapur and China are engraved. 2 different, separated by such a geographical distance, but still it is mentioned there. Then on the second face, you find the sappers who died belonging to the 61st King George own, and these battled in East Africa from 1914 to 1918. And then the third phase, it has got the names of those dedicated belonging to the 64th Pioneers, and this was the raids that took place in Mesopotamia in 1916 and 1918. And the fourth phase has got that of the 84th Pioneers who fought in the northwest frontiers in 1915. Next. So this is the beautiful memorial. So you can find, this is the other 2 sides. On the side facing the oncoming traffic from Residency Road, you will find that the elephant, which is the insignia of the Mysore, of these pioneers. So this is this beautiful thing which has now been cleaned, and it is now maintained by a private company. Next. So we come to the Domlur. There is the Army Service Corps. So these are into logistics and transport management. Before the transport became mechanized, it was although the bullocks, the ponies, the horses, which were very sturdy, and they would carry heavy load. For example, when they go abroad, these were also sent abroad. So they would fight on the scraggy, cold rocks, mountain surfaces in Italy. Then in the flooded plains of coastal plains, which was malaria infested. And in very tough conditions, they could go even up to 10,000 meters high. And even at that level, they could very successfully carry their duty. So these animals, they were burdens, they used to carry heavy burdens of huge ammunitions, then wounded soldiers, supplies, medicines, cannons, whatever it is which we could not do. And fortunately, these unsung heroes have been recognized by ASC, and this is the memorial wherein you find horses and mules, 7 of them, and there are 2 soldiers who are taking them, and it is 7 foot in height, and then you find that there are 2 sides plaques. And there are the names of the animals, and 14 of them have been awarded gallantry awards. So this is the first of its kind in Asia, and it was installed in 2006. Next, please. So next we come to the last memorial, which is in St. Joseph's School, actually not college, school on Museum Road. So this is in memory of the old boys of St. Joseph's College who laid down their lives in the Great War, 1914 to 1918 and 1939 to 1945 and succeeding wars. There is a small book by the St. Joseph. There are many Josephites here, old alumni. So in a book which is called as Faith and Toil, the history of St. Joseph's from 1958 to 2008, there is a letter written by one Mrs. K. Hook. She was a Britisher, and she was staying in Bangalore, and her son, who was a Josephite, he participated in the World War I, and then he was only 21 years old, and then he signed for the British Army, and he was wounded in France, a place called Montauban. He was wounded there, and she writes that because of this, he was awarded and he was promoted as a captain. 3 months after this, she writes another letter saying that her son died fighting the Germans. So this is there in this book. Maybe there are many more such incidents too. And this also shows how St. Joseph's was the first college in India itself to send 369 Josephites, which included 94 officers, and 28 lost their lives. So this is a 160-year-old school, and I think Siddharth Raja and some more are the alumni of this school. And we find that it is inside the college school premises as you enter. So next, please. So that is the memorial. And then next is, there are other than these memorials, there are certain happenings which we should also be aware. One of them is this Bangalore torpedo. I think if you have seen Saving Private Ryan, there is one scene wherein you find it is written Bangalore torpedo. You see the soldiers fighting that, and this is mainly used for clearing barbed wires and booby traps. So these soldiers would be in a trench, and then they would operate. It is a huge long, it may have some 2 or 3 connected tubes into which gunpowder is given. So this was improvised. There were many rockets at the time. So it was improvised in the Madras Sappers in 1912. And it was done by one McClintock. So he was the one who made this, and it was available. They fought this war in 1918 at the Battle of Saint Mihiel in World War I, and in the Normandy line landings of World War II in 1944. So this is again Bangalore's connection to the World War I. Next, please. Then we also find the connection with the Rajaji Nagar sandalwood factory. So Mysore was the largest exporter of sandalwood to Europe. So when the war started, there was a breach in the supply. So there was lots of surplus. What to do now? Then when His Highness spoke to Sir M.V., so he found out one IISc scientist, a chemist, whose name was Sosale Garlapuri Shastri. So he was a very brilliant chemistry scholar. So he was sent to London to know the technology of making soap using sandalwood oil. So from the sandalwood, we made oil and made soap, and that's how we have our another sandalwood soap factory, which has got links to World War I. So Bangalore's another connection. And I also forgot to tell you, when the British were coming here, they thought in the beginning, when they left from here to Srirangapatnam, they were bitten by the mosquitoes. So they thought it was malaria, because of the bad air. But it was Ronald Rose, who was the garrison surgeon, who was based in Bangalore. So he was staying somewhere in quarters in that high grounds. So he was the one who did research and found out there is a plasmodium, and it is this that causes the malaria in the Anopheles, female Anopheles mosquito. And he went on to win the Nobel Prize for this discovery. So the seeds of this Nobel Prize winning doctor was again sown in Bangalore. So then we have S.L. Bhatia. He was also a Major General, Sohanlal Bhatia, with a string of degrees, and he was a distinguished Indian physiologist, medical administrator, and decorated Indian Army officer. So he was decorated because in the Megiddo War, right in the battlefield, he set up the medical camp. and treated many of the wounded soldiers. So there is a Museum of Medical History at St. John's College and Hospital, which is named after Major General S. Bhatia. He was the first Dean of Grant Medical College in Mumbai, and he was the Director General of Health Services. So he got the Military Cross and Order of the Empire for his bravery of treating the soldiers right in their field itself. So then you also find that there is a connection of also Arthur Conan Doyle. So in his short story called The Adventure of the Empty House, so he makes a mention of the first Bangalore pioneers. It is a fictitious name. But then the villain, Colonel Sebastian Moran, was belonging to this group. So it is a reference to the first Madras pioneers. So even there, it is that Bangalore is again mentioned. So we go so far into literature, into medicine, and then into winning Nobel Prizes. Then one such story was the Battle of Bees, which I don't know more details, which Siddharth Raja has already mentioned. And before I close, I would like to just make in passing two statements, which is not related much, but still it is worth knowing. So I would like to say in passing about Churchill. Churchill was here in 1896 to 1900 as a young lieutenant colonel, maybe around 21 years or so, and there was nothing happening here and he was very restless. So he had a huge collection of butterflies and he would buy books, and he was staying in a place which is today somewhere in the Dickinson area, in the MG Road, off MG Road. Then he would come to Brindavan Hotel, which has still maintained a room in his memory, like how it was so far. He would come there to read. And then he was broke. That's why you find that there is a balance of 13 rupees in Bangalore club. And the club officials don't want to write it off and to keep it as a memento. And he was one of the best statesmen in the world, and he won in 1953 the Nobel Prize for Literature. So another connection to the Nobel Prize. And then we also have Ezer Weizmann. He was in the Royal Air Force, and he participated in the Second World War. In 1997, he came to India to meet his Bangalore, to meet his relatives, and it was the Rubin family. So they were the best shoemakers at that time, and they owned a shop which is in today's Woodies. So, and he had his relative or sister, I don't know, some relative who was staying near Safina Plaza, and even to this day, I think it is still there, which has got the Star of the David on the door, and people, Israelis would come to meet there. So he came here in 1997 when he was the President of Israel. And my good friend Anil Ars was one of the journalists invited to interact with him. And then he was accommodated at that time in a hotel called the Dan Hotels, which is an Israeli-based hotel. So it is a 226-room hotel, and they have got, it's an Israeli-based company. So they have got lots of these hotels in India and Israel, and it was opened in 2017. So finally, I close my talk with saying that a city is not just physical structures, but also in its human stories. It is human stories that touch us, and hope that we take the interest of looking deep into our history. And you find that at every step, there is something or the other which is wanting to interact with you, if only we are very open and eyes open and are proactive to understand what it is. So thank you so much for the patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Githa. That was, you traversed a lot of things. And I'll just engage in a brief conversation with both of you and then throw it open for some questions. But General Murugan, why don't I ask you first? You've been listening to the session now for just under an hour. Your thoughts or inputs on any of the aspects of it, especially, I would say, in respect to some of the military traditions that Dr. Githa alluded to.
Can you hear me? Yes.
It's for the recording, sir. We'll need you to. It's on.
Okay. Firstly, good morning. I'm Major General Ravi Murugan, because I'm not too sure. This is the first time or the second time I'm coming to this establishment. So, as a brief introduction, I'm the General Officer Commanding of Karnataka and Kerala sub-area. So, we are responsible for the states of Karnataka and Kerala. We are a static establishment. So, our role, a lot of people are very confused as to what our role is here. So, to my mind, our most critical role is to safeguard the land which the army has here. Because, it is what it is. And it is, more valuable than gold.
It's a blessing for this city. Let me put it like that for us.
So, sure. But having said that, our role is primarily, as to what was highlighted here, is in combat or during operations to support the troops who are fighting a war. So, the supply conduits, the maintenance of it, the reinforcements which happen, the prisoner of war camps which would get established. For example, First World War, there were prisoner of war camps in Bangalore. Jakur used to be a prisoner of war camp. Jalali was a prisoner of war camp where you had Ottoman soldiers and German soldiers being stationed. So, or rather being held here. And so that would be our role, but that is during operations. But our role is more important during peacetime, which is liaison with both the state governments. Second, aid to civil authorities during calamities or during law and order issues. And more importantly, a number of ex-servicemen and serving personnel issues which crop up, because we have a large population which belong to both these states. Our ex-servicemen itself is about 4 lakhs. Karnataka and Kerala, we have an ex-servicemen population of 4 lakhs, and therefore the serving population goes even higher. So that is our main role here, but as I said, also to safeguard the vast land which the defense forces have, especially in Bangalore and in Karnataka. But having said that, firstly, let me compliment Dr. as also the institute itself for having this event. And I say this is important because I've been now participating in the wreath laying which happens on 23rd September, on the Mysore, commemorate Haifa Day, and the sacrifices associated with it. And I think it is important purely for one thing. We celebrate sacrifice, especially in the military context. The sacrifice has been for a community good, or for a larger good. So unless you remember it consistently and periodically, it doesn't get repeated. So the need to be remembered is inherent in all of us. We all want to be remembered. And you are remembered by your close family, so you're willing to do anything for your close family. But unless you are remembered for the actions which you do for a larger good, why should somebody do it? So this is therefore extremely important. I come from an infantry unit, 8 guards, and the unit fought in 71 war in the Battle of Hilli. That's the battle honor we have. And in 24 hours, they won multiple awards, 3 Mahavir Chakras, 2 Veer Chakras, and a slew of awards. But they also lost 70 men in 24 hours. An entire company, infantry battalion has 4 companies. An entire company was wiped out. We reenact that. Every year, our battle honor is of 23rd November. We reenact that in the unit. And we do that because nobody has a connect right now. And the connect is established. So we go through the entire process of all the actions which took place, and we showcase it over 2 days. And we insist every member, every serving person of the unit attends. A lot of people who have retired come and attend this. It numbers more than 100. Families, we we motivate them to attend these. For, again, otherwise, these are functions which are, you lose sight of the larger cause because it is celebrated socially. It is celebrated in terms of, events happening, food and drink and all that. And everybody forgets why is it celebrated. It is being done primarily to remember names, and it is being done that tomorrow there is an opportunity again. Nobody hesitates, and you go ahead and do that. So that is why these events are important, and I fully agree with all that which was spoken now. I also, would like to highlight that Bangalore has an extremely rich tradition, a rich military tradition in terms going back to pre-independence. And those of the memorials which are there, one of my frequent interaction with the state government has been that we need to take care of these, we need to respect it. Then will people respect it. So the one at the end of Brigade Road, after a lot of effort, and with the present government in now, they have committed to taking care of it, because I don't know at what times you pass that, but a lot of times you find people sitting inside those enclosures, drinking and littering that place, and that is not good. But that means we aren't really respecting that well. So it doesn't come in. If it was with us, we would do that. It is not with us. And the other option is that we relocate it into army areas. Then you lose visibility of it.
Yeah.
So we are caught in that bind. A lot of people say you should relocate it and move these memorials inside. Then it loses its value, because the ultimate aim is the consciousness. So that is the thing. Now we come to, sorry, I took a long way to answer your question.
But can I just interrupt you,
Yeah.
General? Just one quick additional point on that. You talked about the need to remember, right? And clearly the army, the armed forces, has that spirit inherent. And you also alluded to the fact that the governments now are starting to understand that a little more. So as to prevent it becoming purely an army or a military event, how do you engender this sense of remembering amongst everyone?
Absolutely. That's a good question. See, I think the first step I would like to, highlight it, if you recollect, the Army Day Parade was done in MEG. Mm-hmm. It was under the Karnataka Kerala sub-area. We conducted the Army Day Parade on January 15th this year at the MEG Parade grounds. The reason this was done is, till now, the entire Army Day Parade since independence has never moved out of Delhi. It has always been, the parade was carried out only in Delhi. This government took the call last year, I think, that the visibility of this parade is limited to only Delhi. It needs to be sent, it has to be conducted all over the country, for the exact reason which you state, that the awareness and the consciousness of what is happening, the military rituals and trappings have an attraction of its own. And it is an extremely high-profile ceremonial event. So when we did that, because it was under me, we kept it open from January 1st, 15th was the final day. From January 1st to January 14th, we had a seating capacity of about 2,500. We opened it to all schools, colleges, anybody who wanted to witness it, we opened it. So we had a footfall of over 11,000, over a period of these. We didn't have that parade every day. We had it once in 2 days, because you had to take a break in between. So that had 11,000. Now, how do we do that? I feel that you have to make these attractive tourist spots, number one. Why does Washington, D.C., it is replete with a number of such symbolism of history. Why is it that well frequented? One, it is maintained outstandingly well. It has a lot of private contribution. All their museums which are there are all through grants they are maintained. But they are all free entries. So you require money. You have to make that attractive enough. The narrative has to sound, the visuals have to be good enough. You can't, as I said, you can't expect somebody to come and stare at a particular memorial when we ourselves have not maintained it well. The chains are hanging and broken, the grass is overgrown. There is nothing there which gives a gist of it or a summary of it. So I had gone to General Thimaya Museum also in Kur, Madikeri. And the material which is there is of historical value. It is all come from the family. But as an organization or whoever is maintaining that, we haven't made that narrative. In spite of that, you have still having about 1 lakh a month visiting that. But still, it hasn't been built up. So one, it has to be made attractive enough. Two, once you make it attractive enough, then people would like to come and visit it. to stay there, to photograph. That is exactly what happens abroad. Everybody, it has a value of recording that event. But the third thing I feel is we need to develop it amongst our youth. So you have to target schools, colleges, and the youth in terms of the heritage trips which the doctor conducts. And that was the first time I came to know she does that. So we are trying to tie up with our schools which we run and the colleges which we run. So you have, in every US school, there is a flag raising which the child does. So when you expect somebody to respect a flag, if you make it as part of a daily routine, it comes automatically. So now when you educate your youth in terms of the value of these symbolisms which are there, then it comes automatically. So there is a need for us to sensitize ground up. But for that, you have to make the story compelling enough. So the story has to be made compelling enough for that.
Thank you, General. Thank you. Please, by all means, this is for you. Here you are.
Adding on to what...
It's on.
To what Major General said, I feel that a little bit of understanding of the army history needs to percolate to the students. So I would suggest, if you are so very proactive, Major General, why don't you once in a year or something like that have tie-ups and tell a little bit about the army history? Because people feel that history is boring and army history is nowhere in the purview of our understanding. Secondly, I also feel that whoever is maintaining these monuments, if there is something called a name plaque, they say that London is an open history book because there are plaques everywhere. So you read that and you get an idea. But here, even including Tipu's armory, which is behind the medical college. It is sunk and nobody knows. And today, when I went there, it was a brick and lime mortar structure. Today, it is painted. Who is maintaining it? It is neither ASI or state archaeology. It is the local people with their understanding of how to maintain structures. They are doing it. So, I would suggest, if at least the military monuments, if you can take the effort of making a name plaque, because if you take the London logic, there is scope for 5,000 name plaques that can be made in Bangalore, and Bangalore becomes an open history book. And automatically the interest will come. Automatically people will be interested not only for going to the pubs in Indiranagar or Koramangala. They'll also come and do this. So why not we have some name plaques? Because there is that, that memorial on the interjection. But what is it about? Who knows? Suppose if there was a main plaque with one or two out of curiosity, because it's all the IT group who come there to get the buzz. So they will come.
Although I must say that the number of wreaths that are now laid, for instance, today after this session, I'm going to drive past. I keenly watch it every year. The number of wreaths at the memorial you're talking of at the intersection of Residency Road and Brigade Road, the number of wreaths have increased, right? So there's clearly, the army is certainly doing its bit. There's no doubt about it, and I suspect that there's a proper ceremony that happens there. But you're right. The point is, it has to be made part of one's system, right? And I say this particularly with, you mentioned it in your presentation about my old school, the alma mater, right? Where that's a tradition. The wreath laying every first Sunday of September in honor of the old students who had laid down their lives, and that tradition amongst it, there's a certain solemnity with the bugle, with the band, with the slow march, and you lay the wreath out, and followed by breakfast, of course, right? Which is always a good incentive to get people to come. But no, jokes apart, but that itself adds to the someone was mentioning it earlier, it's a bit of a colonial hangover to some extent, but well, I guess still, it's a part of the tradition of that school and of the cantonment in general. If I can just ask you, ma'am, just before I throw it open, I had a particular question on the issue of Bangalore and the Great War, and I'll ask both you and General. This specific one for you is that what happened in the princely state of Mysore after the war? There's this narrative which is not much talked about, and that when the troops came back, they were, as you rightly mentioned, they were felicitated, they were, obviously treated as heroes. But from a historical perspective, the colonial enterprise disregarded Mysore, didn't it? Because the contributions that the Mysore state had made were not fully recognized. And in fact, across the country, the Indian contribution in the First World War, as someone rightly said, what did we get? Instead of getting a greater degree of freedom and autonomy, we got the Rowlatt Act and we got Jallianwala Bagh soon thereafter, right? Your thoughts on that? And the flu epidemic, yeah.
No, I think the British, after the Battle of Haifa, realized that the Indians are men of courage and this thing. So I think they would have taken some of them selectively into their armed forces. And the remaining, they were with the Maharaja till we got the independence, when the Mysore Lancers became a part of the army force in 1951, and they were taken like that. It became a part of the Indian army. That's why we have received an army which is highly apolitical, and they are well disciplined because of whatever training they had in the earlier wars. It has prepared them for this. That's why they were absorbed into the army. And
although that's a larger debate again, because I could ask you distinctions between the way in which the Indian army panned out as against what happened across the border in Pakistan, but that's another story. But that, no, I won't. That's not for this session. Not for this session. Sticking with World War I, General. Any other thoughts about the army's connection that you've seen in your career with regard to the Great War? Because it is a war that incidentally singed the empire, right? We had 1 million men lost, right? At the famous battle at I think it was either Verdun or Somme, there were several thousand men killed in a couple of hours. That famous scene that is there in the Blackadder. I know it's a comedy show. The last scene where they all, they stand at attention and they climb up the trench is symbolic of what happened. They were cannon fodder, just complete cannon fodder. And for such a cathartic event, I know there is the Second World War and of course all the several wars thereafter. What's the sense within that you think that the Indian Army has, and how do you communicate that? It's to some extent a follow-on from my earlier question. How do you communicate that to the people of India today?
No, firstly, as far as the World War I is concerned, initially you were in that gray zone. Do you own it? Don't you? Those things happen because there are so many questions raised. Some units trace their history, some of our units, the Indian Army units, trace their history back 200 years. So when they write their battle honors, on their colors, so some people ask the question, you should not write those honors which are pre-independence. So my point in this is very simple. The battle honors are provided not for the proficiency of victories. They are provided, or rather they are given, for the sacrifice. It doesn't matter as to what cause it was. You have lost people. So when you lose people, our recent wars, I was in military operations when the Kargil war went and it ended. And we lost a lot of battalions after battalion, lost a lot of people at that time. So there was a debate in military operations, should we give this battle honor to them or not? Because they suffered a lot. But ultimately, this recognition is for the suffering. It is not for the acme of skill you have, displayed. So having said that, I'm not too sure whether you're aware, in 2016, on the 100th year anniversary, there was an entire year-long celebration of the Indian contribution to World War I in Delhi, in that Manekshaw, hall, where I think on the Delhi Canton Road. An entire year they celebrate. In fact, we had again a lot of people visiting. The entire Indian contribution. So it was not that, at that time probably we decided that yes, it was, we sacrificed, so many people lost their lives, you cannot be in a gray zone in this. So World War I actually was, the Indian sacrifice and contribution to World War I was acknowledged, commemorated over an entire year's period in the 100th year of anniversary of that war. So that is one. Now, when you talk about what is the takeaway from this, While our contribution was extremely significant, you also cannot disregard the fact that the flower of British youth was written off in this war. It was, you were people right from age of 17 to 21, and as you said, First World War was a defining point for the simple reason you were transitioning from an old style of warfare to an industrial scale of warfare. So a typical event in the First World War would be like, it was trench warfare. So you had separated by, let's say, 300 to 400 to 500 meters, a line of trenches which separated the British line from the German lines. So at the blow of a whistle, it was all so regimented. By the blow of a whistle, people had to get up, get across the trench, traverse that no man's land of about 400 meters, and then attack the German line. So in an age where you had machine guns, you had rifles, you had artillery guns, there is no way you can survive that 400 meters of traverse. In spite of that, people did it. So why would they do it? They do it because the man next to him is doing it. And why does that man do it? Because the man next to him is doing it. Because you don't want to be left out. So this whole issue of regimentation of the Indian Army actually comes from there. The entire regimentation. Why would, let's say, 18 grenadiers goes into battle at Kargil? If they are assaulting a climb which is 60 degrees, why should anybody climb that when you know that you're going at virtually snail's pace and there is enemy positions on top? You do that because for the regiment, and that is the reason why I said that we enforce that issue of what the battalion has done earlier, right. So the entire regimentation concept we inherited from the British. So
we have the poppy fields.
Correct, absolutely, and the Flanders, the examples which you gave. Some of the accounts are that a battalion has 800 people. In some assaults, 70% of the battalion is killed. That is over 4 hours. In 4 hours, 70% of 800 men are killed. So that is the scale of people dying was extremely high. So, and the other takeaways, of course, there are multiple, that you cannot be foolishly, you are wasting away the entire future of a country in these so you have to do these in a far better manner. It cannot be done in this mindless way that you sacrifice people. So that you draw your own lessons from that. But as far as the First World War goes, the thing which stands out is the nature of sacrifice and the unquestioning sacrifice which happened. So, and therefore, as I said, the regimentation aspect of how do you motivate people, yes. And we have now your aspect of how do you, bring about greater involvement. It has to be more well known. My daughter is in class 9 and her teacher is not very clear who were the adversaries in Second World War. So if a teacher who's teaching is not clear as to who were the actual adversaries in Second World War, so that shows probably we aren't paying enough attention to our own history. The history which we want people to remember.
It was once told to me, and I'm sorry, I'm going to now throw it open, but it was once mentioned to me when I was visiting one of the Commonwealth war graves in Burma, actually in Rangoon. Just outside Rangoon, there's a very large war grave cemetery. That the troops in Western Europe, right, have the ability to remember is much more stark because you can walk onto a field and you'll see those white rows and rows of gravestones. Indian troops, on the other hand, don't have graves, right? So, and for example, in the Burmese war grave, there's a huge wall with all their names listed on it, right? Which is equally evocative, right? And I guess that is true even in the Philippines, for that matter. That's right.
Yeah, but I would like to highlight, the initiative of the National War Memorial at Delhi. That's an extremely good initiative. That has all these. Every name has been put in that, as also every new casualty of, let's say, those who suffered or died last year, their names are engraved.
Yeah, because that has a certain poignancy of remembering,
absolutely,
right? Like, for example, you walk through those lists of names in the sunken Vietnam War Memorial you mentioned about Washington,
but-
D.C., it hits you after a certain point in time. You can, about the sheer numbers involved on the sacrifice.
And it is also, there is an attraction in the ritual when you talk about it, when you look at it purely objectively without putting emotion to it. There is an attraction in the military ritual which is followed or which is displayed in public domain. A lot of people I have a flag, my retreat and reveille sounded in my the official house which I have. You find when the gates are open, you find a lot of people just standing and looking at the whole ceremony which goes on. The flag raising which happens and the flag lowering which happens. We need to tap on the value of this draw. There is a lot of draw in this. For example, like the Arlington Cemetery, you have the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Yeah.
So you have the ceremony of guard changeover. You have a huge population which just comes to watch that ceremony of the guard changeover. And it is done in a very deliberate and a manner wherein it showcases the precision of it and the emotion of it. For, when DC was hit by a hurricane some time ago, some years ago, they evacuated all people, this was on the path of the hurricane. The only people who refused to go were the guard of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So they were told that you require to then give an undertaking that you are here at your own risk. They said there is no question the tomb goes unguarded. So these kind of traditions add to the value and the story of it. So that is extremely important. You have to make strike the chord wherein ultimately we admire those things which we think we are not capable of. Right?
I would like to add to what Major General said. In Lund, in the Lund University in Sweden, and one particular date, the war between Sweden and Denmark is recreated. To such an extent, it is like a real battlefield happening in front of you. And it is not only the college students or the university students, but even visitors, then tourists, and even the local people. There's a huge gathering that you cannot even go and sit anywhere and this thing. They're all very eager to see this. So why don't we do something like this on the Manekshaw parade grounds?
And like now for this Manekshaw parade ground, nobody knows it's Manekshaw parade ground, right? So there is not even I took over last year and I asked, where does the board say it is Manekshaw parade ground? There is not a single lettering which says it. So now we are creating a more imposing structure, and we will install the statue in about a month's time of Field Marshal Manekshaw there. So, and I blame, I might blame myself for this for the simple reason, why didn't anybody do it? So only then now when I install the statue there, I will have a walk through there. So we will try and make it as self-descriptive as possible.
Oh yeah, you absolutely must, because that's a great occasion to draw people in.
And that's everywhere. So as I said, if the people haven't visited the National War Memorial at Delhi, you should. As a start, it is an outstanding monument. And it records every battle fought by us. It records every name we have lost. So we have, by the way, the war memorial here, our national war memorial here, predates even the Delhi one. And the effort, I must compliment the Group Air Commodore Chandrasekhar, who is the retired, the officer whose idea it was and who actually executed it. You have equipment and museum pieces there, which is not there anywhere else. But for lack of, organizational support, it is now in a state of disuse. It could have been actually showcased into one of the most visited locations in Bangalore, if it had been maintained in that manner. But so that has been one of my points again in our interaction with the state government, that frankly, we have lost a number of years in developing it even further. So
another point I would like.
Sure.
We also have the Commonwealth graves in that Ulsoor cemetery. So when I had been there about 1 year back, it was pathetic the way. I asked the Reverend Father, why is it not maintained? He said there is no space for our people itself for the grave. So they put on top of this, they give space for the Indians to bury their dead. So where is the sanctity?
It's happening everywhere. Just to, conclude the official part of this, may I just request all of you, thank you both very much, General Murugan and Dr. Githa, thank you so much. I know we've kind of effectively run out of time, but if there are a couple of questions, if you can keep it brief, we can take it. Yes, ma'am. Just a moment, you'll let you. Oh, okay, we'll take all three questions. Please, go ahead.
I just wanted to check, are the structures of or the hierarchy of the army, are they the same across the world, or do different countries follow different?
Okay, just hold that thought, General. We'll gather all questions and we'll come back. The other one, the gentleman at the back there? Oh, all right, okay, Prof.
After the First World War, the civil and military station in Bangalore put up a war memorial for those who lost their lives during that war, Indian soldiers. After independence, a decision was taken to demolish it. So this used to be called the Cenotaph, and the road is now called Nuptunga Road. Any comments?
All right, just hold that. And the gentleman at the back there? Go ahead, please.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Thank you for your service. First and foremost, my name is Mahadevan, and one of my ancestors happened to be, he was killed in action in the Battle of Rangoon. So this is very special to me, and I just had an observation to make. See, we can discuss all these things in a closed room, but then unless we link up with, say, schools and make this part of the curriculum or something, nobody is going to know. The next generation is not going to know. What has happened, but is this a good place to start wherein we link up with schools and, the army personally appoints someone to, liaise with the schools to educate students so that the coming generation can know about this.
Great, thank you. Thanks. So let me just, why don't we go with the first question, General? I think that was directed specifically to you.
So
in terms of structures of the army.
So that is by and large the same, because we all take, this is evolutionary in nature. So the broad structures are the same, but the granularities differ. So that depends from country to country. I'll just give you an example. So the Indian Army and Infantry Battalion has 4 companies, so about 800 personnel. The US Army functions on 3 companies. They form a triangular. So there are thoughts which are different, but the broad structures are generally the same all across. And as far as this, the other question of the students go, there is no way other than doing that. The thing is the army doing it? Yes, we reach out. In fact, our outreach to all schools and colleges is ongoing on a yearly basis. But we go probably, 3 times in 6 months. And we talk about the army. We talk about, we send our gallantry award winners to speak to them about the specific actions. It is not going to work. It doesn't work for the simple reason it has to be part of the curriculum. It has to have credits. It has to lead to them memorizing things. If you are memorizing a battle which is pre-independence, you might as well be aware of a battle which is post-independence. So it has to be made part of the curriculum wherein you get credits for it. If you don't get credits, everybody is looking for benefits.
I also suspect, General, it's got partly to do with the fact, and I may be stepping into disputed territory over here, it's also probably got to do with the fact that you are facing a recruitment problem, the Indian Army.
We have no recruit. Okay, now let me clarify this. Okay, for one vacancy of a soldier in the Indian Army, you have 8,000 people lined up. 8,000. When people say there is a recruitment problem in the army, we don't have a recruitment problem. You go to, let's say, Bihar, and you have a recruitment rally there. You require police in terms of battalions because there are going to be riots there. That is the number of people who turn up because we have a government jobs are, the foremost attraction.
That's a topic for another day. We come back. Just 1 minute, ma'am. Maybe you want to take that question on the Cenotaph. Although, Professor, are you sure it was only a memorial for pre-independence? The Cenotaph that was brought down. Okay, you'll clarify that. All right.
So did you say it was for the Great War? It pertains to which period did you say?
The First War.
The
No.
First World War, no?
No.
That's what I thought
It
as
is-
well.
It is actually for the Third Anglo-Mysore War.
Correct.
So Tipu Sultan's. So it was Vatal Nagaraj, who is a local outfit. So he felt that the
Out.
people...
Sir, ma'am, you have to be a little careful. Huh? The outfit and within closed doors, misfit is not very far away.
So it was set up during that time, commemorating the Third Anglo-Mysore War. And I think in 1964, October 28th, this Vatal Nagaraj with his people, they pressurized the BDA to pass it. They passed a resolution stating that this structure has to be brought down. So it was brought down, and in its place you find the Kempegowda statue. And the Senatov Road became Nrupatunga Road. Why does this happen? That is because we want to impose the modern narrative. What I understand, I want to change the narrative and suit to my understanding. I don't like Tipu Sultan, honestly speaking. So, and whatever names you wrote are not Indian soldiers, but actually there were Indian people also, which we forget. We think that anything to do with the British is all British soldiers. Indian army was a part of that. We forget that. So forgetting that and wanting to impose his own modern narrative, wanting to change the perspectives now, a thing that has happened 1791, you are using today's understanding to give it an explanation. How will it gel? And why do you want to break and move statues for what purpose?
No, that particular memorial, as you rightly point out, ma'am, was in the Third Anglo-Mysore War. It commemorated British officers, right? And so therefore the feeling was that it was overly, colonial, British-oriented, etc. As you rightly point out, that itself is disputed because it was Indian troops, so on and so forth, all of that. So if you put today's perspective, as I once mentioned, if you start looking at historical data points with the benefit of hindsight, which that historian never had at that point in time, you'll never get anywhere, right? The what if school of history and the hindsight school of history will never get you anywhere, right? So on that note, I'm afraid we've really truly run out of time. Thank you once again, ma'am, Dr. Githa and Major General. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session. And remembering Armistice Day again, we shall close this session.